still April 4th, continuing conversation about trip to California with Mom and her brothers and
Pop-up.
Grammy and Papa, Libby and George.
Now, quickly we forget.
No, he's just Pop-up.
Yeah, so we, and of course I didn't have any of the big highways then. So we did a lot of the side trips and, see the biggest ball of yarn or whatever, string. And we went to Yosemite, Yellowstone, and Pop had a customer, I believe, or a colleague, I'm not sure, in California. So we swung by there, and but we ended up in San Francisco. We were staying in a hotel. Jerry Lewis was there. He was in the lobby, so I just pulled out a piece of paper and had him sign it.
Huh.
And I have no idea where it is. But the story was that he'd been in the hotel shopping, the store earlier and just started tearing things apart.
Oh dear.
Which would have been in character for him. What about all these ties and
Oh, sure.
in any case, it was a convention was the goal, a chicken convention.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Well, what we kids did, was Frank Perdue was there and a bunch of other people. And of course wasn't famous, he's just one of Dad's buddies.
Yeah, Purdue wasn't famous yet.
Well, and we kids, we got one of the stands was handing out bags, somebody else was handing out crayons or pens.
Right.
We just went around and picked up everything. So, and it seems to me Pop gave a speech. Whatever. Then we ended up flying back, but of course there's no direct flights. So we flew to Chicago and changed, and then to Pittsburgh and changed, and then to Lancashire, I guess.
What do you remember about the relationship between your parents, between Grammy and Papa?
Well, there was never any violence. There was never very little arguing. And I don't think it was that Grammy just gave in. I think it was they had a mutual respect for each other. And she'd get upset with him when he'd call Friday afternoon and say, I got a customer coming in. I've invited him to dinner. That's how she got a frozen food locker.
You
So
mean
she
a
could be
freezer?
So,
You mean a freezer?
Yeah. Well, in Delaware it was a frozen food locker because they didn't have household freezers then.
So when did Minerva come in, and how did that happen?
She applied for a job at Pop's hatchery
Okay.
and worked there for a little bit, and then he realized that Grammy needed some help. This was a big house. And so she came and just stayed. And then as time went on.
And she had already been excommunicated?
She was Mennonite, right?
She was Mennonite.
And she had a son whose name began with a J.
John Henry.
John Henry.
And a daughter. And they ended up living in the apartment over our garage.
But she was thrown out of the Mennonite church.
I don't think she was actually excommunicated because she still had contact with her parents. But she didn't realize that she was divorced until she read it in the paper.
Oh.
But that's why.
Yeah.
So
I remember her voice and her gentle, she was tiny, and her gentle...
I don't think she was as tiny as
I
you
remember
think.
her as being very thin and frail and small.
We never knew how old she was.
Yeah,
No,
she was
but-
either 30 or
But
75. But
funny, and
She loved all of us.
yes.
And,
I have a newspaper clipping in all of my family documents that's a society page picture of Grammy on a patio. The Ellises are entertaining. And all of it was on the society page of the Lancaster newspaper. And I remember a party there with the big speakers
Yeah.
and
We hid under
being
the
under
tables.
the table.
I remember
yes.
that.
And I had that speaker for a long time. But I remember people's feet and how
Yeah.
swanky it was. And I remember Pop-Pop, obviously. I was little, but I remember him very, very distinctly. But when did he start having trouble and go to the hospital?
Well, see, we left Lancaster in 1970.
Oh, you and Dad and
Yeah.
us. Okay.
No, that's not right.
We were at Laurel Lane in 76 and 77.
Right.
No, Eric was born in 1970. We had just moved to Haverhill.
Right. We were in each place about 4 years.
Okay. And then we went to Laurel Lane where they
Yeah.
renovated the house.
But you had left, when you left Pennsylvania was when you went to Kentucky.
Oh, before we were born. We're
Yeah.
skipping marriage. And
Well, he was already in the service, your father, and he came, to Lancaster to get married, and our honeymoon was driving back to Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I counted up. We lived in 11. I've lived in 11 different places.
Huh.
But whatever.
So what year did Pop-Pop go in the hospital?
Oh hell, I don't.
Am I jumping time? Big
Well,
time?
I can tell you that he was in the hospital when Eric was born in 1970.
Okay.
And I think it was maybe 69.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
guess, but
He died at 59.
right. But he died when Eric was a baby.
He was at what's it called? Lancaster
uh,
Hall.
Maple Farms.
No, that was Great Grandma Wallace.
Right. Lancashire Hall? He
That's-
was? Where I worked? Like when I volunteered that summer?
I don't know.
I thought he was in Maple Farms too.
Yeah, I think he was.
Maybe.
I think he was. And I want to say he died in 1971.
Okay, that's probably. We can certainly check it with our.
If not, it's just on either
Yeah,
side.
Around there.
Yeah, because I remember taking Eric to see him
Mm-hmm.
so that he could see my little boy.
Right.
And, he reacted very warmly and had no idea who I was. There was a time when he would confuse Grammy and me.
Mm.
But
So let's back things up then. So when did you go to boarding school? How old were you?
10th grade.
Why did you go to boarding school?
My own brother had gone.
So?
And I was not doing well in school. I repeated 10th grade when I went away and did very well academically because I had such a rotten beginning in Delaware and I was always playing catch up. And just, I got some,
Were you glad you went to boarding school, or do you wish you would have stayed at Lancaster Country Day?
well, I'm glad I did what happened. I needed both the separation
Mm-hmm.
and to find out who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't just George and Libby's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up doing very well. I ended up being a prefect, which is like your RA,
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
and applying to colleges and all that.
Why'd you pick Lake Erie?
First of all, they did early entries, so I got accepted in like December. And, you didn't hear from anybody until spring. I don't know, because I wanted to go to Duke because I was looking at the psychic stuff, and I looked at
You were interested in the psychic stuff? that
Don't
Duke
you
was
remember
doing
they
back
were
then?
having her? They wanted her to go do studies
That
at
was
Duke
at Duke?
yeah.
because she could go through the cards, and I'd always make
No,
her
I
try
know.
and do it again.
And that program is still big
Yeah,
time
it was
still
just
going.
starting.
And they're in partnership with the Monroe Institute. by
Because
the
that
way.
was Ryan.
Yes.
Alfred.
The Rhine, RHINE
Yeah.
Institute.
Was it Duke? Yeah.
Yes, it still is.
Yeah. But that was just beginning. So.
Well, who got you into that? Who decided? I can't see George or Libby saying, "Oh, I think you're psychic. Let's take you to Duke."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Because Jim said, "Oh, you were always the psychic one," and I don't remember having any visions or anything.
Mom, I grew up with you. The phone would ring. That's for you. Go get it. How would you know? This was before caller ID.
I don't know. So what was the question? How did
Well, we were talking about Lake Erie.
Okay, well, that was a 4-year school, private. Tuition was about $2,000 a year.
God,
Room and board.
And what
that
was
doesn't even cover.
And what was your major?
God.
It was a liberal arts, so it's
Okay.
Lake Erie College for Housewives. It was also known as.
Oh, get your husband. So
Your
that's
MRS degree.
And you met Dad. That was an all-women's school.
yes.
And
It
that's
was-
how you met Dad.
Well, because he was at a work-study program at Antioch, and he was sent to Lake Erie to work in the theater, and I was working in the theater, but we didn't care about each other. We didn't even, weren't in the same shows or anything.
Did you think he was cute?
I just ignored him. So it wasn't until there were some other romances that happened with Antioch students. And so we got a group of us together and went down.
To Antioch?
Went down to Antioch. And that's when I got hooked up with your father. I don't know how. He was stage manager, I think. We were making noise and he wasn't pleased about that.
Oh, right. You were in the back of the theater and
Yeah.
you made him mad. I do remember that
Yeah.
story.
So then they said, "Who's that cute redhead?"
Do you remember the show? Out of curiosity.
I can pull it up in the middle of the night.
All right. We can come back to that. Your silly cat is making so much noise.
So then you got engaged, and the story that I always heard of the two of you getting engaged was he was hungover
It was the
And
night
you-
before she was sailing on the Queen Elizabeth to Spain.
to go to Spain,
Queen Mary.
and he was
Queen Mary,
and he
sorry.
was hungover, and Margaret, I love you.
On
please
warm beer.
On warm beer, Margaret, I love you. Please marry me.
Something
You were on a cot at Jackie's house.
Is
Jackie's
that where it was?
at Squeaks.
Squeaks.
Because she
In New
was-
York City.
No, she was in Jersey, just across the river. And we were going to meet my parents in the city, I think. Whatever. But she had invited a number of people to this party. And some of them got a little too romantic, too near us. But there wasn't room for one of us, let alone two of us on this cot. But it was that or the floor. And I don't know, it was not him kneeling down or asking my father or
Right.
anything.
Yeah, we always heard that he asked you. You said yes, and then he got up and threw up.
I think that's about it.
Which is about as romantic as it gets.
Yeah.
So then you went to Spain, and you had a great time in Spain.
Yeah, I was there for a little over 3 months. Lived with a family
In Madrid.
in Madrid.
And Dad joined the Air Force at that point, I believe.
Right in there.
Yeah, I
Because
think.
this was my junior year.
Yeah, I think he was heading off in the Air Force because
Yeah.
he fell out of, he couldn't major in bridge and beer any longer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Gotta do something. I'm now engaged.
mhm.
Yeah, we really didn't know each other until we got married because, he lived in Arlington, Virginia, and I was in Lancaster. And you don't have a steady, dating relationship.
You don't have Facebook and emails.
No, none of this stuff. And you still cost money to phone people. So